Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So, really quick, if you haven't seen my most recent episode on Inferno of the Star Mounts, make sure you check that episode out because it's actually a really cool new dragon commander that, well, goes about things just a bit differently and has the potential to deal 20 damage with just 1 mana. And yeah, you can do that multiple times if you're set up properly, so make sure you check that out at some point. But actually, on this episode, we have what might be one of the most exciting commanders from this entire set with Asmodeus the Archfiend. Asmodeus is a 6/6 devil god that costs 4 black, and it has Binding Contract. If you would draw a card, exile the top card of your library face down instead. And by paying black, we draw 7 cards. Yes, you heard me right, draw 7 cards for 3 mana. Now, of course, because of that first part, we actually just draw those cards and they go straight into exile instead, but we can get them back with the last part. By paying a black, return all cards exiled with Asmodeus the Archfiend to their owner's hand and you lose that much life. So yeah, it's kind of like, again, like that contract where, hey, alright, I'll give you a ton of cards for a cheap amount, but by doing that, it's going to cost you a decent amount of life to actually get access to those cards. I mean, again, 3 mana for 7 cards is absolutely absurd. And actually, as Eddie and I were discussing this card, of course, the very first comparison that came up was Griselbrand. Again, a huge thank you to Eddie for all your help during spoiler season and the fantastic discussions around these cards. Regardless, Griselbrand is very much a banned card in this format for a lot of reasons. It has pay 7 life, draw 7 cards, so yeah, that's incredibly busted. I mean, in a format like Commander, you start off with 40 life, so you can activate this, 5 times at the very least, as long as you've got a full life total. And of course, in a black deck, there are plenty of ways for you to gain life, so yeah, this thing is just basically draw however many cards in your deck that you need to just win. Now, of course, Asmodeus isn't quite on the exact same level as Griselbrand, because again, with Griselbrand, you don't even need to use mana to draw those cards. Now, that's definitely not saying that Asmodeus isn't incredibly powerful, because, well, it is. 3 mana for 7 cards is still a crazy amount, even if you don't get access to them right away. If you do want access to them right away, you've got to pay 1 more mana, and then you get those cards into your hand, and then you lose that much life. So, 4 mana and 7 life for 7 cards, again, is still going to be well worth it in a format like Commander. And of course, if you really want to, you can just keep paying that black to draw 7 cards to build up the amount of cards that you have in exile, and then when you need those cards, just pay the 1 mana to get all those cards at once. So you can save some mana if you want to go about it in that way. And of course, in mono black, you've got plenty of ways to generate a lot of mana to be able to activate this a ton. First up, obviously, if you're willing to spend a good amount of mana, Cabal Coffers is a fantastic card for a mono black deck. It's a land that has pay 2 and tap to add black for each swamp you control, and in combination with something like Urborg, well, all your lands are swamps, so every single land just gives you mana. So obviously with this, you can dump an absurd amount of mana into Asmodeus. Also, there are mana doublers out there like Cryptgas, which you can utilize as well. It has Extort, which can help you gain some of that life back, which is nice, and also says whenever you tap a swamp for mana, add black to your mana pool. So this doubles up your swamp production, which again can really help you out with a commander that has an activated ability like this one. And then even a card like Black Market can come in really handy again. It says whenever a creature dies, put a charge counter on Black Market. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, add black for a charge counter on Black Market. In a game of Commander, there are going to be plenty of creatures dying throughout the game, so you can get an absurd number of charge counters on this. And then you can dump a lot of that mana into your commander's ability to draw a lot of cards, and then to get those cards in your hand. Losing some life in the process, yes, but you've got access to cards that can help you gain that back. Obviously, first up, there's the favorite of many players, Grey Merchant of Asphodel, better known as Gary. It's a 2/4 zombie that costs 3 black, and when it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life. For X is your devotion to black, you gain life through life lost this way. Now, in a mono black deck, of course, you're going to have plenty of black mana symbols on the permanents that you control. But not even counting any other permanents other than your commander and Gary, that's going to be 4 black pips. So again, with 3 opponents, that's going to be 4 life per opponent, so you just gain 12 life for casting this 5 mana card. And again, that's going to be on the low end of the amount of life that you can drain and gain in this deck. But even with that 12 life gained, that's going to offset you drawing those 12 cards from your commander. So that nearly makes up for 2 activations of your commander. But perhaps an even better way to gain your life back is with something like Eternity Vessel. It's an artifact for 6 and it enters the battlefield with X charge counters on it where X is your life total. And then it's got landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you may have your life total become the number of charge counters on Eternity Vessel. So you can work to get this out decently early, or you just work to get it out after you gained a lot of life, and then all of a sudden you can get your life total easily back to a pretty high life total. Again, let's just say that this has 40 charge counters on it. You activate your commander a couple of times, you bring those cards into your hand, and then you lost a lot of life, and then all you have to do is put 1 land into play, and your life total goes all the way back up to 40. So this can essentially completely mitigate any downside that your commander has when it comes to that life loss. With all the cards that your commander is going to be exiling and getting for you, chances are really likely you're going to be getting a land out of them. So just make sure that you plan your land drops accordingly. Now, of course, we can also flip the script and make our life loss from a downside into a huge upside. For example, Magus of the Mirror is a 4/2 human wizard that costs 4 black. It has tap, sacrifice Magus of the Mirror, exchange life totals with target opponent, activates the ability only during your upkeep. So right before our turn, we can activate our commander and bring all of our cards back from exile to our hand, and then we lose a good amount of life. But actually putting our life total down to a very low amount becomes a very good thing when we've got Magus of the Mirror. On our upkeep, we tap and sacrifice it and exchange life totals with some very unlucky opponent. They go down to whatever low life total that we are at, and we get to go up to their life total, which is going to be a lot safer. So instead of essentially having to pay that life loss cost ourselves, we kind of in a way make an opponent pay it for us. Again, this is basically turning a downside into a huge upside for us. Because once that player is at that low life total, we can easily finish them off, again with something even just like Gary, just to drain them out. And of course, we actually even have a repeatable way to swap life totals with something like Soul Conduit. It's an artifact that has pay 6, tap it, 2 target players exchange life totals. So again, with our commander's ability to draw us a ton of cards and lose us a ton of life, well now we can utilize that to take out multiple opponents. Or we can utilize it to make an absurdly large creature with Profane Transfusion. It says 2 target players exchange life totals, you create an XX colors horror artifact creature token where X is the difference between those players' life totals. So not only do we swap life totals, putting ourselves in a much safer position, but we also make a giant creature that can dish out a lot of damage for us. And actually, one other pretty fun way to go about this is with a card like Repay in Kind. It's a sorcery for 5 black that says each player's life total becomes the lowest life total among all players. So again, with our commander, we can in a way manipulate our life total to get it down to a very low amount. And again, when we do that, well, we can just cast this and take everyone down with us. And then when everyone's at that low number, again, we just get Gary into play or whatnot, and we drain our opponents and win. Our commander can easily help us dig through our deck for the right cards to make all this work, so yeah, there's a lot of really fun things that we can do with this. Or at least things that we consider fun, and our opponents might not see it in the same way, but that's okay. Regardless, aside from actually gaining that life back or swapping life totals, there are even ways to get around that life loss. First up, if we activate our commander with that black to draw 7 cards, while that's on the stack, we can cast something like Village Rites. It's an instant for a black that says, as your total cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards. So if we sacrifice our commander before the ability resolves, well, we are not bound to that binding contract. That means that when that ability actually resolves, our commander is no longer in play, and because of that, instead of putting those cards in exile, we just get to draw them like normal. Now again, to do this with a sacrifice effect like Village Rites, we are still paying a cost because, well, again, we just lost our commander. So obviously having to recast our commander can be pretty costly. Now, there are definitely going to be times where it's worth this kind of a workaround, but there are going to be other times where we're just okay with losing that life instead. But we even have some ways that we can get around actually losing our commander, well, losing our commander in a permanent way with something like Void Your Staff. It has pay 2 and sacrifice it, exile target creature, return the exile card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So again, we can activate our commander to draw some cards, and before that ability resolves, well, we just blink our commander and then our commander's gone. So no more binding contract, we actually get to draw our cards, and then our commander comes back into play later. No life loss, and no having to recast our commander. Yeah, there are some pretty cool things that you can do with this. Speaking of which, perhaps the most powerful thing that we can do with our commander is utilize Uba Mask with it. Uba Mask is a very unique card. It's an artifact for 4 that says if a player would draw a card, that player exiles that card face up instead. Each player may play lands and cast spells from among cards they exile with Ubamask this turn. So essentially, instead of going the binding contract route whenever we draw cards, we can go the Ubamask route. Like with our commander, the cards get exiled, but instead of having to pay to get access to them, well, we just have access to them with this. Obviously, there are some differences and some downsides and some upsides to each, but yeah, it's just another option. So if you're looking to get around that life loss, this could definitely be a way to do it. And another pretty fantastic way could be with something like Necrotic Ooze. It says as long as it's on the battlefield, it has all activated abilities of all creature cards in all graveyards. Binding Contract is luckily not an activated ability, but the other two parts are, though the only one that matters again is that pay black, draw 7 cards. So far, commander's in the graveyard, now the Necrotic Ooze has the ability to just, pay black, and we draw 7 cards. And because again, Necrotic Ooze doesn't have that binding contract, those cards don't get exiled and we just get them directly into our hand. So yeah, again, there's some pretty interesting and unique things that you can do with Asmodeus the Archfiend. You can find ways to gain a ton of life, or to swap life totals with an opponent, or to just completely get around any downside that your commander really has. I think a lot of players out there are going to be really excited about this commander, and I can't wait to see what kind of builds they come up with. So have fun with this commander, which is basically just Griselbrand Light. And with that, this show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one.